Hello everyone, welcome to this special class for UPSC Civil Services Mains 2027. At the very start, let me tell you something. This is going to be a series of lectures, about 30 to 35 lectures, which will be available for those who are aiming for Mains 2027. In these lectures, I will not be dealing with the usual things. It is going to be something very different, but very effective for your mains answer writing. Whatever we do every day, it will relate with GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as with your essay paper. After having a look at today's class, you will understand that how beneficial and how very meaningful and rewarding these classes are going to be for all of you. And from tomorrow, it will be available only and only on our portal, not on YouTube. If you want to enroll for these mains classes, you have to just give me a call. At the end of the session, I will provide you with my number. So today we are going to talk about a French sociologist, Pierre Bourdieu. He has given so many unique ideas that make our answers, be it for GS paper 1, 2, 3 or 4, so very enriched that the examiner will definitely get impressed that someone has presented the answer in a totally different and in a very systematic manner. So what exactly is his idea? So Pierre, he talks about the hidden inequalities. Let me give you a very small example. What I mean here when I talk about this person, Pierre, and his idea of hidden inequalities. There are few words that we will come across now which will add much value to our answer writing. So hidden inequalities. It is not just about economics. It is about education. It is about the gender, the sex. It is about the society. It is about the place where we live, the family in which we are born. So everything carries its attribute while we make our personality, and accordingly we stand up in this world. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to understand his ideas, Pierre's ideas, to apply them to Indian society, paper 1, governance, paper 2, ethics, paper 4, through the ideas that are equally applicable to your sociology as an optional subject. So let's talk about what he tries to make us understand. He is trying to tell us that life is much beyond basic economics. When he talks about the idea of inequality, what he is impressing upon, what he is emphasizing upon, he is saying that to understand the framework that why things like poverty, inequality, discrimination, they survive in the society despite there being so many legal provisions. ऐसा क्यों होता है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में अनटचेबिलिटी को अबॉलिश कर दिया जाता है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में विमेन को इक्वालिटी का स्टेटस दिया जाता है, बट स्टिल द इनइक्वालिटी कंटिन्यूज, इट persists. Why, despite there being legal provisions, constitutional rights, and the idea of modern democracy being in place, why the discrimination, why the inequality, why the differences, they continue? Then he moves on and he tells us that inequality is not simply about economic issues. It's not about money. It is a complex web of mindset, networks, language, culture, and all these things, they perpetuate the social divide silently. Majority, minority, dominant groups, lesser dominant groups. So we have to understand various perspectives today. And I can assure you that by the end of these classes, these 30-35 classes, your mains answer writing will be totally different. So the important words that you can ingrain in your answer writing, number 1 is habitus. It is the mindset. Pierre gives this idea of habitus. Now what he says, What is habitus? What is mindset? The deeply ingrained habits, behaviors, and ways of thinking acquired from family or the surroundings. It makes an unequal social world seem completely natural. We are born in a family where we are made to believe that patriarchy is natural, male dominance is natural. It is so proved, it is so impressed upon that if you are born a male, you are privileged. As if you can speak good English, you are intelligent. There are stereotypes, right? So one is habitus, the mindset. Then there is capital. What is capital? The power that we get. And it goes much beyond money, the economic status. It includes cultural capital. Now, what is cultural capital? You must write down these few words. They will help you a lot. Right? Cultural capital. What is cultural capital? It is the education, the language that you speak. Social capital. What is social capital? It is the networks, the connections. If you know the influential people, if you know the people who make the difference in the society, it is not just money, it is cultural capital, social capital, and the symbolic capital. What is symbolic capital? It is prestige, honor, tax. For example, if someone is a doctor, a lawyer, and then someone who is an IAS, you have earned it, but it is a symbolic capital. It brings that honor to your name, to your position, and you use all these capitals to navigate the society. It is not just by money. A richest person cannot be as influential as a civil servant can be for a particular thing. For example, if it is to be seeking a permission to start a business, right? Then there are different fields, the battlefields that we come across in our life. This society in which we live, it is divided into different fields. Education, politics, bureaucracy, these are all different fields. Each field has distinct rules where people use capital to compete. Now, if you want to go into politics, if politics is the field, money is not just the only thing. You need to have the social capital, the networks, the connections, the symbolic capital. You should have some kind of background. With all these things, success becomes little easier. So it seems natural. They are destined to rule. They are destined to qualify the exam. For example, why it so happens that because of CSAT we say that Hindi speaking people are at disadvantage, but then it becomes natural for those who are proficient in English, right? Then we have symbolic violence. So I am giving you 4 new words today. Habitus, then capital. It is not just the money or the wealth. It is cultural capital, social capital, and symbolic capital. Then there are fields, and here we have symbolic violence, the invisible oppression, something that goes on naturally, like when the dominant class imposes its culture, language on the marginalized classes, and the marginalized accept this inferiority as normal, as natural. Now, this is symbolic violence. The evolution of capital, how this idea of various types of capital, social capital, cultural capital, it evolved. Economic, if we talk about the wealth, the money, the traditional measure was wealth, land, property, and financial assets. If you have all these things with you, you are influential in the society. Let's talk about the time of feudalism. Then with Renaissance, Reformation, the world changing, there is cultural capital, education, degrees, vocabulary, etiquettes, and knowing fluent English. It became more important. And now there is social and symbolic capital, networks, who you are, prestige, honor, and reputation. All these things now make a lot of difference. Let's now apply them one by one to all the GS papers, GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your essay paper. For GS 1, let's study today patriarchy as habitus. Patriarchy has become a mindset, it is habitus. It survives in India because it operates as a deeply ingrained habitus. We have been groomed, we have been brought up in a manner that being a boy, being born a boy is a matter of privilege. It is internalized by both men and women as normal. Even mothers, they prefer a son and they prioritize a son. They do discrimination against the daughters, despite being the fact that they themselves are women, the mothers, the grandmothers. They always force beta to hona chahiye, right? Now, if I take it in my GS paper 1 and I have to put some real life examples. So here are some of the examples. 1. Pink collar segregation. When we talk about pink collar segregation, it is women naturally drifting towards nursing and teaching. And I can quote Asha and Anganwadi despite the fact that they get very low pay. Then property rights. We see women voluntarily giving up their share in ancestral property to their brothers. Then son meta preference. Reproductive habitus demanding a male heir, countered by Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Then domestic violence, normalized as a private family matter, indicating accepted male dominance. Now see how this idea of patriarchy as a habitus has been ingrained in this society. Caste and symbolic capital. Now this is something very important. Once you start using these words in your mains answer writing, it will make all the more difference. Caste is not just economic, it is a monopoly over cultural capital, scriptures and symbolic capital. Purity, high caste, purity. You can have access to Vedas as it was said. Sanskritization. Lower caste adopting upper caste rituals to acquire upper caste cultural capital. They start imitating others, ignoring their own existence, ignoring their own rituals and traditions. Manual squenging, the worst form of symbolic violence, enforcing extreme internalized indignity. Nothing worse than this can ever be quoted as an example of symbolic capital associated with the idea of caste. Then temple entry movements, historical struggles like Wycombe, where different fights for equal space and symbolic capital were to be waged. You can quote many examples here, even the recent examples. Dalit capitalism. Stand Up India scheme builds economic capital to offset historical social capital deficits. All these ideas, if incorporated in your answers, they will make all the more difference. Then paper 2, education and cultural reproduction. Now this is again going to be a new idea and I hope you will understand and appreciate this idea. Bourdieu, he argued that the schools do not reduce inequality. Going to school is not creating equality at any cost. They reproduce it by rewarding the cultural capital of the elite and penalizing the habitus of the marginalized. The elite schools, the culture that is followed in those schools, the facilities that are provided to students in those schools, it continues the idea of inequality. So education itself is not bringing an end to the idea of inequality. English as a symbolic violence. The tribals, the students from the rural areas, they face entrance exam. While they face these exams, they are at natural disadvantage against the urban elite. This is a very simple example which you can any day quote for your GS paper 2. The new education policy 2020 promoting regional languages is a direct strike against forced English education. Here you can now justify the idea of vernacular. EMRS, Eklavya schools specifically build the cultural and social capital of ST students. Now these are very small basic examples that can make your answer little more meaningful. Politics and social capital. Political dynasties. Elections often rely on inherited social and symbolic capital like family networks, caste alignments rather than pure grassroots merits. Who votes for the merits? We vote for dynasties. Even the Prime Minister has been emphasizing on this fact that we have to bring an end to dynastic politics. Panchayati Raj. While reservation gave women seats, the Sarpanch Pati phenomena shows male habitus hijacking female symbolic capital. Now look at this framing of the sentence in the words of Baudu. It makes your answer little different but more effective. Then lateral entry. An attempt to bring private sector cultural capital, specialized domain expertise directly into the traditional bureaucratic field. Now that is the idea behind lateral entry. If you put your answer with these words, with the different expression, you make a lot of difference. GS paper 3, inclusive growth versus capital conversion. Now look at this table, it will give you a lot of insight. Economic growth fails when marginalized groups cannot convert their labor into other forms of capital. You are just working as a labor, domestic labor, factory labor, agricultural labor. Your labor is not changing your status in the society. It is not giving you adequate opportunities, be it education, be it society, whatever it is. Government schemes act as the bridge. Now let's look at this. Initiatives or schemes, the target groups, and Baudu's capital conversion impact. This is going to give you a lot of important insight. Self-help groups. Who are the target groups here? The rural women. Now how it changed the capital or how it brings the capital conversion? Pooling micro savings economic to build massive collective social capital and empowerment. The women helping themselves to the self-help group by bringing their micro savings, the capital, the economy, to build massive collective social capital, all women together, that leads to women empowerment. Then FSOs, FPOs 10,000 scheme, small marginal farmers are the target group. It solved the lack of individual social capital needed to bargain with larger markets through collectivization. So here you get the idea of collective bargaining. Then PM Jan Dhan Yojana. The target group is unbanked poor. Now how it brings that capital conversion? Breaks the habitus of the rural poor by integrating them into the formal financial field, economic and cultural capital here we talk about. Then PM Swanidhi, street vendors are the target group. It formalizes the economic capital and removes the symbolic violence of constant police harassment. So this is how you integrate ideas of Pierre Bourdieu in your mains answer writing 1, 2, 3, 4 essay, and this is how you make your answer stand apart, different, more meaningful, and thereby getting better marks. Environmental justice, if we talk about through the eyes of Bourdieu. Climate change disproportionately impacts the poor as compared to the rich, the elite. It impacts the poor in a disproportionate manner who face symbolic violence through elite conservation policies. Elite conservation policies, what do you mean by this? Forest Right Act dismantles colonial habitus, recognizing tribal cultural capital, ecological knowledge, Indian traditional knowledge system, Indian knowledge system. Climate gentrification, elites use economic capital to buy safe lands, punishing poor into flood zones. Just transition, this is very important. Moving away from coal without reskilling minds is an act of symbolic violence. You move on to different unconventional sources of energy, but then reskilling miners is very important, otherwise they will become unemployed. It will be difficult for them to survive. Finally, we come to civil services habitus for GS4. The colonial habitus creates arrogant rulers, while a democratic habitus creates compassionate servants. And this exactly is the bottom line of Mission Karma Yogi. Mission Karma Yogi, it explicitly aims to change bureaucratic habitus from rule bound to role bound. The words are rule bound to role bound. Emotional intelligence is essential to unlearn privileged habitus and empathize with vulnerable citizens. That exactly what a bureaucrat, a civil servant needs to understand. Corruption. It is essentially the unethical conversion of social capital networks into economic capital, worth, the wealth. Now look at this, the way the words have been used here. Corruption is essentially the unethical conversion of social capital networks into economic capital, the wealth. Nepotism and favoritism. An officer awarding a government tender to a relative is an unethical application of social capital. Collusive bribery contracts. Politicians and bureaucrats form a close social network to defraud the exchequer, that is illegal mining. Whistleblower Protection Act provides a legal shield for honest officers challenging the corrupt habitus of their department. Look at this for your case study, how beautiful this can be used. Citizens Charter empowers citizens to demand services as a right, dismantling the symbolic violence of MAIBAP administrative culture. For your essay, let's take one theme, education. What you can say? Argue that Indian education often acts as a cultural reproduction. True education must break traditional habitus and impart cultural capital to the poorest. That is, for example, Super 30, New Education Policy 2020, institutionalized symbolic violence can end. If it is women empowerment, the theme is women empowerment, use habitus to explain how patriarchy lives in minds and rituals. True empowerment requires building economic, social and cultural capital simultaneously, dismantling the colonial habitus. So finally, if you want to write an answer like a topper, what you can do? 3D approach to poverty I am going to give you here, beyond mere economics. Never write an answer about inequality merely in terms of money. Always categorize the solution into empowering the marginalized with economic capital, funds and property, cultural capital, skills and education, social capital, networks, self-help groups and FPOs, thereby ending the symbolic violence they face. This is how you can make your answer stand apart and look different and score better marks. If you like this, now write down my number. Send me only a WhatsApp message if you are writing this year's mains. Then let's connect for a very special program and let's do something meaningful together. I'm going to give you my number. Write it down. If you are writing mains this year, these 30-35 classes are for you. For sure they are for you. You will get a lot of value addition. And I hope you have seen the things that will be added in your content, the value that they will enhance. Meanwhile, till the time I write down my number, in case you have any doubt in mind, anything that you want to ask, feel free and ask me. This is my number, right? So from tomorrow, I will be starting with these classes, these special lectures in which we will be adding new vocabulary, new ideas, new jargon for GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4 essay, making it all the more different, rewarding to ensure that you get those extra marks that ensure the best ranks. Thank you everyone.